It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, everybody. This is your Feel Good Breakfast Show on S3. It's all about inspiring you this morning, and we're so glad to be connecting with a speaker who's given us such phenomenal advice over the years. I'm talking about Nikki Bush. She's a human potential and parenting expert, and today she connects with us to talk about her new book, Future Proof Yourself. Now, the book is written for such a time as this. It's perfect for anyone who is experiencing change as well as disruption by choice, or whether it is externally imposed without consent. So very good morning to you, Nikki. How are you doing this morning?
Fine, thank you, Jamie. Lovely to be back.
It's always so good to connect with you. And I think this past 18 months, we've all changed some way or another, whether it be weight, whether it be mentally, we've all had to change. But I mean, to date, you've written parenting books. I mean, the last one was published in 2019. Talk about future-proof your child for the 2020s and beyond. What made you then write this one, Future-Proof Yourself?
Thanks, Jamie. Well, you know, as you alluded to, we've undergone so much change. And in Future Proof Your Child, for the past however many years, in all my talks and my books, we've been talking about the coming change. What was going to change the way we live, the way we work, the way we play, the way we do school, all of those things. And with the global pandemic, of course, we had hundreds of thousands of people being sent home to work from home. And I actually wrote a white paper called How to Keep Your Business Running. And it was all about managing the disruption of having parents working from home. And that white paper went viral. And Penguin Random House picked that up and asked me if I would expand on that and write a book about disruption per se and include a chapter about working from home. So that's really where the book began. And of course, it draws on the threads of what I experienced after the death of my husband when he was murdered in our home around 4 years ago. And I realized that everything that people were going through with COVID was a form of loss and grief. And in fact, so many of the transitions, the life stages that we go through actually concern or involve a process of loss and grief. And if we can identify that, we can actually move through these phases as a more whole person, I suppose. And so it became really important to write this book to help people to dance with disruption, whatever form it takes. And sometimes we choose to internally disrupt ourselves on purpose. That could be like a job move or a town or a country move, maybe getting married or having a baby, starting a family. It's very disruptive when you actually start a family, as beautiful as the gift is. And then there are these external disruptions that we can't plan for. COVID is one of them. The fourth industrial revolution is another. Of course, something like death of a partner is one of those things. But all of these things actually open us up to change. And with change, if you can see it positively, then there can be growth.
Yeah. In order to grow, you need to change. You need to change your mindset. You need to change the way you do things. Get out of the routine. Get out of the norm that you normally do this. But when you decided to put pen to paper, who did you have in mind for this book? Exactly did you write this book for?
Well, it's really been written for every adult because it's a book that reassures people that the world isn't coming to an end. It's just changing. And that's a very important concept to understand. You know, when things become unfamiliar, when we feel out of control, we feel uncomfortable. And human beings don't like to feel uncomfortable or out of control. And the whole thing is that we really need to stop naming, blaming, and shaming other people for what has happened and take responsibility for the parts that we can control. So whether you're a parent, whether you are a business owner, whether you're a business leader, whether you're an educator, let's look at who has borne the brunt of this pandemic so far. We all need to stop playing the victim card, and we need to choose not to be buried as victims of change, but to be broken open. Because if you allow yourself to be broken open, you can then be planted like a seed. So the book is full of frameworks for reframing where you might find yourself and tools to help you to reauthor and rebuild your life.
And that's a choice we have to make every single day, moving that way, thinking that way. You touched on it briefly, but why do you think it's so important to just learn to recognize disruption and also learn to dance with it?
Well, let me give you an example. If you're at the beach, I think you've quite soon realized that you don't control the wind and you don't control the tide, but you can learn to harness the power of the wind and the tide. And so life does not unfold in a straight line, not for you, not for me, not for anyone. And we have to learn how to live with life as it is, not looking back to life as it was, because that's wishful thinking and that's giving your power away to the past instead of living in the present.
Future-proof yourself. I want to touch more about the book, but we're going to do that in just a little bit. So Nikki Bush, don't go anywhere. We're still connecting with you. How have you changed? How has 2020, 2021 changed you? We're connecting with Nikki Bush on that, but we'll speak to her in a little bit. Right now, it's Back to the Kitchen with Zoe Brown.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Oh, yes, indeed. It is your Feel Good Breakfast Show on S3. Welcome to Tuesday, everybody. Now, early on in the show, we connected with human potential and parenting expert Nikki Bush to talk about her latest book, Future Proof Yourself, a perfect tool for anyone who is experiencing change and disruption. I mean, we've all gone through it over this past 2 years by choice or whether it is externally imposed without consent. Nikki, are you still with us this morning?
I am. Thanks, Jamie.
How have you changed over this past 2 years? I know I've been speaking about my change, but how have you changed as a mom, as just a human in this world with the global pandemic and everything that's going on out there?
Yeah, we've really had to reinvent our lives, just the way we do everything, and become a lot more, I think, self-reliant. So self-leadership is a massive theme in this book. And I really do challenge people to be curious. There's a lot of fear when we feel out of control. And let's face it, with this global pandemic, so much control has been taken out of our hands. You may be raring to go, but when we were in level 5, level 4, level 3 lockdown, there was so much that we couldn't do, even if we wanted to, with our businesses, with sending our kids to school, all of that. So I think that accepting that control is an illusion, is a big part of future-proofing yourself, which I expand on in the book in many different ways. And that we have to get to a place of acceptance, and then we can move forward rather than looking at the past. And I think, looking at ways to regain a sense of hope and control is important. Finding small ways to create joy in your life. It doesn't have to be the big things, the overseas trip or the new car. It can be picking tiny little blooms in your garden and putting them in a tiny little crystal vase next to your bed. That gives you joy. Many people have had the opportunity to see their children grow up. And I myself had my 2 boys in their 20s come home during that tight lockdown period, which in a way is a gift. I could never have orchestrated that if I tried to have my grown-up sons come home for a while. So there's so many different, things that have changed in my life. And of course, the big pivot of working from home instead of getting on an airplane and flying down to be in studio, giving talks all over the world to much bigger audiences than I would have previously had I been there in person.
And I think kudos to all of us for being so resilient and just having to adapt to this change and just adapt to this new normal. But I want to focus again back on the book. Tell us about what each section of the book talks to.
Yes, so the first chapter is called Dancing with Disruption. And in fact, I've written this book for very busy people. So if you just read the first section called Dancing with Disruption in its entirety, it's about 50 pages. Then you can literally dot in and out of the book wherever you feel you need to be, a little like chicken soup for the soul. So the first section is Dancing with Disruption. The second section is Working Remotely. It doesn't have to be from home. We're in a work from anywhere economy now. And then building resilience is this third section. And then leading yourself, because self-leadership is going to be a huge theme moving forward, which we'll unpack in more detail in shows to come. Then leading your team at home and at work. And every single chapter, Jamie, has it's very short, all the different chapters within these sections. And at the end of every chapter, there is takeaways for winning at work, and then a section on takeaways for winning at home and life. Because I don't believe that we are different people at home and at work. We are one person expressing ourselves very differently. So there'll be lots of information to help you personally to pull yourself up at this time, and many ideas of how to help your team if you are running a business, whether it's you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, you're running a team in a corporate. There's something for everyone.
And I love that. I love that the book is for absolutely everyone. Obviously, for our viewers listening in right now, where can they find your book?
In all major bookstores right now, and all online retailers as well. And if you'd like a signed and inscribed copy, you can buy directly from me at nikkibush.com.
Mzansi, you heard it here first. That was Nikki Bush. Thank you so much. As always, it's great to connect with you, just to speak about what you've been doing in this space and how you've changed, how you've adapted, and now encouraging all of us to do the same. So thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Jamie.
And that was, of course, human potential and parenting expert Nikki Bush, always leaving audiences and readers with practical frameworks and solutions at work. But right now, we're heading over to the beauty room to find out more about the resort style that we've all just encapsulated with today's looks.